Cars out onto the track for the first of the weekend's races. The GT4 European Series, a fantastic packed grid of cars. The track is dry. It certainly wasn't dry when they went out to play, first thing this morning. But good news is the wind has blown the track dry. The temperatures are rising. They will find grip they didn't have when they went out qualifying, when conditions were very cool indeed. But as you can see, a packed grid of cars trying to find their positions up and down the start-finish straight. 30 cars will come out to play, and at the very front end of the field, it's a KTM on the front row on pole positions, Mads Siljehow alongside the Phoenix Racing Audi, and great manufacturer variety as we like in GT4. As always, right the way down through the field with so many manufacturers coming out to play in this burgeoning class of racing. Again, that wonderful shot down the start-finish straight towards that historic first corner, the Tarzan, the double right-hander with the big gravel bed that claims many a car that just goes in a little too hot. Hot is not the operative word. 2 weekends ago, it certainly was. We were at Misano on the Adriatic coast with air temperatures of close to 40 degrees. Half that this weekend. And drivers certainly finding it rather more comfortable in the cockpit. In fact, this morning they were complaining it was too cold on the circuit. They couldn't get the heat into their tyres. How the pendulum swings in just the space of a fortnight. Looking down towards the tail end of the grid, car number 48, glorious little Alpine A110. That's the car shed in the AM class by Eric Mouet and David Loger, entered by CMR. So there we have air temperature still below 20 degrees. It got up to 21 earlier. Track temperature just under 23, and we saw that slightly higher, but when they went out this morning, it was only 16 degrees. They'll find an awful lot easier to get some grip in their tyres today here around Zandvoort. So many turns around the lap, you can count them in many different ways, but effectively 20 turns, very seldom in a straight line. In fact, pretty much apart from the start-finish straight, everything else is a twisting turn. 5 minutes to the start of the race, the board being held up at the front of the grid. So the serious stuff is coming very soon indeed. Back at the grid, you can see Pascal Bachmann, Christian Seiler's car, the Street Art Racing Aston Martin, sharing with the Turkish entered, the Borusan Automotive Motorsport BMW M4. So that does suggest that a couple of cars may not be starting. Looking out for the number 33 Bullet Racing Mercedes and the 71 BMW. But let's go down to the front row of the grid, because Dakota has caught up with the driver who'll be sharing the number 1 Audi. That's Cedric Freiberghaus. Down with Dakota.
Cedric, now you're starting on the front line of the grid. There's a monstrous grid behind you, but Nico's going to definitely be looking in front, isn't he?
Yeah, Nico is going for the front, of course. He did a really good job in the quali, so we just need to have a clean race, a good start, and then we see where we end. But I think we have a good car. Nico is doing a really good job, so we just need to push, and then hopefully we get the top stop.
And how do you like this track with all the different undulations, up and downs? It's an amazing track, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an amazing track, and I think also it fits our car quite well. I think it will be a good race, and hopefully we can show what we can do. So.
Now, as this track doesn't really have many overtaking opportunities, pit stops going to be crucial. You on it for pit stops?
Sorry?
Are you going to be on it for pit stops?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Good luck for the race. Thank you very much, Cedric.
Thank you, Dakota. Cedric's had a very good season, but there have been a few non-scoring finishes, but they've had a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and a 10th. But 3 retirements, and those all hurt. But his teammate Nikolai Moller-Madsen on board looking very focused indeed. He's 2nd on the front row, but the pole starter will be Patrick Niederhauser, the True Racing KTM. He shares with great aplomb, car number 16. Sorry, that's not on the front row. Move back a few positions. I was going to say it's Mads Siljehow in the KTM starting. It's a sister car, Patrick Niederhauser, we were looking at there. Moving across the grid, the number 8 local favourite Dutch team, Chris Motorsport, their M4. Very much a local favourite, Ricardo van der Ende. What he hasn't won at this circuit doesn't exist. Loves his racing. But let us go down to the grid once more, because the coach is very busy. She's about to speak to Nikolai.
Nikolai, I've just spoken to Cedric. He's really confident, but you guys have had some good racing.
Yeah, I think the pace of the car is really good right now, and Matt did an amazing job putting it on pole, and I'm excited to see how it turns out. This is my 2nd time at Zandvoort, and I still think I'm a little bit jet lagged. I got here recently, so I'm going to take a little nap, and then I'm ready to go for the 2nd phase. I'm excited.
No, you're going to take a nap. How can you take a nap when this race is going on?
I just got in from California not too long ago, and I need to calm the jitters a bit before I hop in. But I'm really confident with Matt's skills, and I'm excited to take P1 all the way to the finish.
And my last question, what is it like driving over here from America? That's a long way to come to our beautiful track at Zandvoort.
First of all, I'm honored that Ryder invited me to come out. I didn't know until the last moment that I was going to come, and this is one of my favorite tracks. I was here a year ago, and the elevation here is like no other. So this is one of my top 5 tracks. I'm very grateful to be here.
Enjoy the race. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dakota. That was Nikolai Elganayan, who races in the States, but he came over last year, did a Central European round of the GT4 Championship here, and he's stepped up to the full European Series. Jet lagged or not, he's loving his time here, and the fact you pop in and are sharing the car that will be starting from pole position. That's the number 24 True Racing KTM. There it is, with Mads Siljehaug, the Norwegian racer, at the wheel. The Dane Nikolai Moller-Madsen alongside. It was nip and tuck through qualifying. Tricky conditions, and always in the mix is the MDM Motorsport BMW, another American racer, Alec Udell at the wheel of that. Finley Hutchinson, the better placed of the 2 V8 Racing Rumblers, the Camaro, and Patrick Niederhauser and Ricardo van der Ende. These are all winning drivers at the front end of the field. They all know what it takes to be at the very, very top. The Ginetta will start 7th. That's from NM Racing Team, Luke Ibanez and Duncan Hausman. And then row number 5, we're looking at the best of the McLarens. Benjamin Lecen is a really strong driver pairing, and Marcus Pavrud. Both those cars through the course of this 1-hour race could work their way forward. Dominic Schrammel, Schrader Motorsport Mercedes, that's going well. Best of the Aston Martins, Julian Darras. Again, that has some strong form under its belt. In fact, there are so many drivers who've had top results down towards the 10th position backwards that I expect a real shuffle. But as the drivers said when Dakota was speaking to them, it's tricky to overtake here. You've got to be committed. The other driver has to be able to keep things sweet as well. So the pit stops are going to be very important. 1 hour of racing, the guaranteed pit stop in the middle. Kai van Berlo, young Dutch racer, stepping up to GT4 this weekend. I'm sure he'll be having fun on his home circuit. So 28 cars out on the track. I want to see if we've got 2 late starters from the pit lane as the field gets away on the formation lap. We'll maybe get a sight of the end of the pit lane and see if the 2 cars that I think will be missing, the WD Racing BMW and one of the 2 Bullet Racing Mercedes, 33 and 71 are the 2 cars we're looking for, but the 28 out on the circuit, all getting away cleanly at the start of their formation lap. And again, getting that sight suggests that we are going to be missing the 33 Mercedes and the 71 BMW. Let's take a look at the Silver Cup. It's Jan Kissel and Max Kobold, but they're outside the top 10 in qualifying. Max starting the race. They've got plenty to play for, but the duo behind them in the championship, Simon Knapp and Alec Udell, are starting 3rd. So this is their chance to take a real chunk out of the championship leaders. And likewise, Daniel McKay and Benjamin Lecen. I think their McLaren was in 9th place, if my memory serves me correctly. Yes, indeed, it does. You can see the McLaren. They're just behind the yellow Mercedes, getting heat into its tyres. In the Pro-Am Cup, Marcus Pavrud and Lucy Treffs sitting on quite a comfortable lead, because the car chasing the Marius Zug and Gabriele Piana hampered its hopes with a bit of a slip-up in qualifying. But right now, it's all focused on where's the heat, where is the track fully dry. In fact, looking at the track as the field goes through Schäflack, it's dry all around. And here's the order in the Am Cup. Clement Saylor, Pascal Bachmann, top of the table by 30 points. And in fact, the chasers, Johan Vanneram and Jean-Luc Behetz, are not competing this weekend. So every opportunity for David Loger and Eric Mouet. We had a little shot of their Alpine to move up into 2nd overall in the Am classification. GT4, a category of racing below GT3, but a chance for a lot of drivers to get their first taste of GT racing. The sheer fact we've seen the first car go through shot, and yet there are another 20, nearly 30 cars behind. Just shows how the championship has grown. The class has grown, various championships all around the world. And the cars look great, sound fabulous. And look at the mix of manufacturers in shot. BMW ahead of Chevrolet, ahead of Ginetta, ahead of Mercedes, ahead of McLaren. You get the picture. And one really feels after the qualifying session was nip and tuck as the weather conditions changed. It was all about being there right at the end to take pole position, but certainly a handful of runners, even outside the top 10, have every chance of, if they had another lap, could well have taken pole position. So the order can be shuffled, will be shuffled. Whether they all do it without body damage, we will see, because it's very, very tight around the circuit. The field bunching up, the final 2 corners to come. They need to be in 2x2 formation. Top 10 doing a nice tidy job. Those behind starting to filter into position. Yep, those behind Julian Darras' Aston Martin doing just that. He's in 12th on the grid, but on the front row, it's Mads Siljehaug, Nikolai Moller-Madsen, Alec Udell tucked behind on the second row, along with Finley Hutchinson. So it's KTM from Audi, from BMW, from Chevrolet. They are the top 4. Pace car accelerates away, peels into pit entry. There it goes now. 2x2, the drivers come round the final corner, looking up at the red lights on the starting gantry. Still red as soon as they go green. Back 28 cars, 2x2 on the start-finish straight. It's a long hold, and now they burst out looking for position, but a good start by Mads Siljehaug from pole position. Nikolai Moller-Madsen, it's 2-3 abreast behind. And suddenly Ricardo van der Ende up into 4th place around the outside. He's already gained several positions, being pushed by the second of the 2 Camaros. In fact, both the Camaros doing pushing on the exit of Tarzan Bend. It's still 2x2 as though they're forced to be in those positions. They're down the twisters behind the paddock through the Gerlach box, now down into the Hugenholz box, and it's 1 and 2 as they were on the grid. It's Mads Siljehaug ahead of Nikolai Moller-Madsen, the KTM ahead of the Audi. Out onto the back part of the circuit, the driver with the body language of improvement is Ricardo van der Ende, 3rd place. He started down in 6th and he's flying for Encris Motorsport up towards Schäferlach. They go through the feature corner on the circuit. They're now not trying to go 2x2. You cannot do it without ending up in the giant gravel trap. Running nose to tail, but up front, that little break from pole position just found about a 1/10 of a second. It's Siljehaug from Moller-Madsen. And now from 6th up to 3rd, Ricardo van der Ende. 10 end of the field, all still very, very tidy indeed. For a lot of these drivers, they had to remember back to yesterday to remember what it was like for a dry flying lap. Twitching there. Alec Udell lost a few places. He started 3rd. He's ended up behind the Camaros, trying to fight back for the MDM Motorsport BMW team. Now, Ricardo van der Ende got right. Oh, another place being gained, being fought over. Alec Udell trying to fight back. But it's the Camaro up into 4th place overall. Not yet at the end of the opening lap, and you can see that Udell wants that position back all over again. I think he's got more pace than the Chevrolets, but he's got to find a way by. They'll stride the tank. You can see the damaged bodywork on the nose of the Chevrolet Camaro that's coming around in 4th place overall. Sister car going very wide. 2 positions gained by the McLaren in behind, so good start for Benjamin Lecen, but it's Mads Siljehaug leading by 4/10 of a second. Ricardo van der Ende 3rd behind Moller-Madsen. Duncan Hausmann is the driver with the damaged front end on the 69 Chevrolet. And Ginetta in the mix as well. That's Luke Jimenez, but let's take a look at the replay at the start. It was a long hold, and then the field found out the front row was tiny, but it was those in behind that really thought they could gain position, and the driver who did probably the most gaining was Ricardo van der Ende. You can't see in this replay shot until now. The white BMW goes out to the right-hand side, keeps the foot in there, goes past Finley Hutchinson's Chevrolet, and the second Chevrolet was the one that got a little bit of nose damage. Where did that happen? We saw pushing through, yes, both of the cars, and it was Duncan Hausmann pushing Ricardo van der Ende. That's where the damage was done. Now, back to live racing at the very front end of the field, and it's still in the order they were at the end of the opening lap. Contact between 2 of the runners is under investigation, 12 and 21. 12 is the BMW from Borisan Automotive Motorsport, and 21 is the Allied, one of the 2 Allied Racing Porsche Caymans. They're not at the sharp end of the field. In fact, they're down towards 25th and 26th positions. Up front, though, it's Siljehaug from Moller-Madsen. Ricardo van der Ende trying to pick up the pace. Another person trying to make progress is in number 16, Patrick Niederhauser. Lost 2 places at the start of the race, trying to get them back all over again. All starters still running. Starting to space out a little bit. I actually fancy that Benjamin Lecen in the white and blue Equipe Peugeot McLaren is going to start picking off or getting onto the tail of the V8 Racing Camaros in front of him. His first target, Finley Hutchison. Ginetta right on the tail of Max Kobolt's yellow Mercedes, not able to make a run down the start-finish straight. In fact, the Mercedes dropping the Ginetta as they run down towards Tarzan. But if there's any dropping being done, it's Ricardo van der Ende who's dropping off the back of the 3-way lead battle. It's still Siljehaug ahead of Moller-Madsen, but Ricardo van der Ende dropped back a little. Excuse me, a little bit of coughing there. but the lead battle is starting to tighten up. Nikolai Moller-Madsen has got the bit between his teeth in that number 1. Phoenix Racing Audi really, really close, almost under the tail, under the rear wing of the KTM of Siljehaug as they dive through Schäffler. Fast in, stays on the track on the way out. So Siljehaug gaining advantage through the trickiest corner on the circuit. This is the battle for the lead of the race. The V8 Camaro in 4th place, Duncan Houseman on his own. Then comes Alec Udell down from 3rd to 5th. Finlay Hutchinson hanging on to 6th place. Benjamin Nassen trying to press him, but a good start to this lap for Finlay Hutchinson, the Scot, in the second of those 2 Camaros. Every time Ricardo van der Ende catches up with Moller-Madsen, he drops back off the tail again, and now he's got Duncan Houseman getting closer and closer in the number 69 Camaro, V8 Racing Camaros in 4th and 6th places. Duncan Houseman getting closer to 3rd though, all the time. Max Cobalt, the championship leader, we've got an off. Waiting an Aston Martin, it is indeed an Aston Martin, has taken to the gravel. It's beached in the gravel, trying to pick out where that is on the circuit, but wherever it is, it's buried, and that could lead to a red flag or certainly a safety car. Well, there was contact, and then presumably something broke. Yeah, front left-hand corner failed after the contact, and Tom Wood, British racer for Academy Motorsport, parks the car in the gravel. He was a passenger from there on, being caught very well by the camera crew, parking at his feet, but contact led to damage. Front left corner failed, and simply unable to turn off the circuit. That's at turn 10. So unfortunate for Academy Motorsport just there. So Fiona James won't get a race. We have full course yellow around the circuit. There are the messages. Drivers all have to run down at a maximum pace, which to them is very much a minimum pace. As they run all at the same pace, no one will gain any position, quite clearly, but no one will gain any advantage. There should not be any closing of gaps behind full course yellow. The only closing of gaps is if someone is not even matching this maximum pace at which they're allowed to control. So didn't even get to 10 minutes into the race and we had a car in the gravel, but the results of a little bit of contact, nothing too heavy, but it was sufficient to cause the front left corner to fail, and Tom Wood had no ability to turn the corner, stuck the car into the gravel. For everyone else, it's all been very clean, and that getaway at the start of the race from the front row was immaculate. Mads Siljehaug making the most of that pole position. He was already ahead by the time the field got to the first corner, keeping Nikolai Moller-Madsen looking in his rear-view mirror as much as looking forward as he defended second position. The driver who gained the most on that run to the first corner, Ricardo van der Ende, went from 6th on the grid up to 4th place, and then within about 3 more corners he'd moved to 3rd place, and there he stayed. And here in the replay, Tom Wood, nothing he could do about it. As you can see, no steering at all. The front left wheel splayed out at an angle, and to a dusty halt for the Walero-sponsored Aston Martin. So there's a rundown of the order as it is. It's Mads Siljehaug from Nikolai Moller-Madsen, Ricardo van der Ende, Duncan Houseman, Alec Udell and Finlay Hutchinson. But for a lot of these drivers, they'll fancy their chances on the restart. If they can just anticipate the moment and not jump the gun, then we will have place changes. As much as Duncan Houseman will be thinking of getting past Ricardo van der Ende for 3rd place, Van der Ende, you can see in the white and grey Ecris Motorsports BMW, fancies his chances of going 3rd to 2nd. His target, Nikolai Moller-Madsen. And in turn, Moller-Madsen looking at the KTM. Mads Siljehaug leads them around. 6 cars seem separated from the rest, all the way back to Finlay Hutchinson. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Benjamin Nassen. I don't know why it's quite that big, but anyhow, full course yellow period continues for at least this lap. Looking for all messages about when there may be a withdrawal of the car, but definitely a big gap between the first 6 cars covered by less space, and the gap back to the 7th place McLaren, number 14, Benjamin Nassen. Well, my understanding, when the full course yellow is out, you have a maximum speed. The drivers will have a limiter on them, on their car, so they will flick that, and so there should be no closing of gaps. Definite change of a gap. The front 6 have shunted together. Then there's a gap, and then you get the next 3. And the person who's losing out there the most is Benjamin Nassen in number 14 in 7th place. He wasn't that far off the tail of Finley Hutchison. Now it seems like light years. Look, first, second and third covered by next to nothing. Bit more of a gap back to Duncan Houseman in the Camaro with the battered front end, and then in 5th place overall, Alec Udell. Still be a little bit smarting from the opening few corners, where down at Tarzan he was pushed by Houseman. Houseman is in front of him now, and went down to 5th overall. In fact, I think Fancy he fell to 6th. He then got back past Finley Hutchison, but Alec Udell will be looking to pick his way forward. Still time of penalty, but still time for full course yellow at the moment. And I would suggest, as long as the snatch vehicle has done its job, that the Aston Martin of Tom Wood will be recovered from its position. Twisting through the sand dunes. Well done, crew. There's a gap in the fence there, so the car should be recovered. That is around effectively turn, well, it's called Boch 10. It's also effectively the 13th corner. Depends how you number them around the lap. Big gap back to the Ginetta as well. That's Luc Ibanez, way off the tail of Max Cobalt. Aston Martin being withdrawn there through the gap. That Boch 10. And then you get the infield straight that leads them down to the Hans Ernst Boch, the tight right, followed immediately by a double left-hander. And then after that, just a short stab up the stubby little straight to the penultimate corner, then sweep onto the final straight for all of this field. KTM from Audi, from BMW, from Chevrolet. 4 manufacturers in the top 4 positions, with Mads Siljehaug leading the way for True Racing. Nikolai Moller-Madsen, the number 1 Phoenix Racing Audi, tucked under his rear wing, waiting for the restart, still full course yellow. Mads Siljehaug in the driving seat. The top 6 well clear of the best of the rest. Benjamin Lecen, I don't yet know why they've managed to gain such an advantage, but we will just focus on what is coming up, which is the full course yellow restart. Full course yellow no more. We're racing all over again. Ricardo van der Ende, as I suggested, really trying to make a slingshot. And in behind, slight gap back to Alec Udell. Duncan Houseman trying to use the power of the Chevrolet down the start finish straight. Mads Siljehaug having to go up the inside to block first Phoenix Racing and Nikolai Moller-Madsen, but increasingly the charge from the Ecris M4 up into 2nd place overall. And a really, really good start, but doesn't get 2nd place. Moller-Madsen somehow manages to resist van der Ende, and the first 6 close up all over again. So no advantage gained, just as it looks as though Moller-Madsen was going to lose 2nd place, maybe even lose 3rd. He stays on for Phoenix Racing in 2nd, and for Mads Siljehaug, the storm has been weathered for now, but the field starting to stretch out. Then suddenly, all on his own in 7th place, Benjamin Lecen in the McLaren. He may well be able to catch them in terms of natural pace. I think the pace is there. He's got no one to fight with right now. He's shaken off the 3 cars that are on his tail at the restart. This sextet at the lead of the race are going to be fighting hammer and tongs, but don't forget the McLaren was some 3 seconds behind on the start-finish line. He will, I feel, close in. Finley Hutchison bashes the curbs in the 2nd and 2 V8 Racing Camaros. Still in 6th position, trying to see what he can do about Alec Udell. Alec, the meat in the sandwich between the 2 Camaros. Yeah, definitely in the background you can see Benjamin Lecen is just picking them off a few tenths of a second here or there. We could soon, within a couple of laps, have 7 cars in that lead grouping. We started with 6th. You can see the 2nd of the Camaros, then the gap, and then Benjamin Lecen, and Gabriele Piana chasing after him in the number 111 BMW. Mads Siljehaug been a really good restart lap for him. Not only has he stayed at the front of the field, but he's also managed to pull away very, very slightly from the chasing pack. In fact, very, very well indeed. Started the lap, crossing the start finish line, if you want to know, 0.13 of a second ahead of Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Now he's almost put a second on that. Let's see what the interval is. Still the Audi in 2nd place, but he goes from 0.13 of a second to 0.8 of a second. Very, very handy restart lap. And just to do a bit of housekeeping, the car that clashed with the Aston Martin putting it off, or causing the damage that put it off, was the number 2 Mercedes, one of the Lippert Motorsport cars, shared between Lucy Treffs and Marcus Pavarud. Tom Wood will be the aggrieved party there, and a drive-through penalty for car number 12. So offences, and that was the Borusan Automotive BMW that started from the back row of the grid and had contact with car number 21, Benjamin Lassatis' Porsche. But what we're having on this lap is, having been given that advantage, or made the advantage, Mads Siljehaug is now being caught. The chase being led by Nikolai Moller-Madsen. It looks as though the Valvoline livery car, the KTM Crossbow, had done enough to get away, but Moller-Madsen just dogged, just managed to get a bit of breathing space. As in behind, it's the Dutch aces, Ricardo van der Ende and Duncan Houseman, who are very busy fighting each other. This is the opportunity for Ricardo van der Ende to keep hold of third position, but even more of an opportunity for Nikolai Moller-Madsen to make good his escape. Yeah, that tattered front end on the Camaro hasn't changed since the opening corner of the race, when Alec Udell was given a bit of a push by Duncan Houseman. Udell in fifth, Houseman in fourth, so there's a little bit of salt in the wound. The car that did the pushing is the car that's in front. Just keeping an eye on the gap back to McLaren. McLaren in the bottom of the shot there, playing catch up. It was 3.5 seconds down on the restart, went up to 1.8 seconds down on Duncan Houseman. Now he's down to just 0.6 of a second down on Duncan Houseman. I said the Equipe for sure McLaren would come forward. It most certainly is doing that. Top car in the Pro-Am class, Duncan Houseman in 4th place overall. Top driver in the Am class, just in our shot there, the little Alpine in 17th place, David Lozier, number 48. Marcus Pavrud in the background, that's the yellow Mercedes that had the contact with one of the 2 Academy Motorsport. Aston Martin's number 2 at the wheel at the moment is Marcus Pavrud, not driving where he's accustomed. He's down in 19th place, the Norwegian racer, but keeping the Norwegian theme going, it's his compatriot Mads Siljehaug that leads the race, 3/4 of a second. Here's one of the local drivers new to the championship this weekend, Kai van Berlo. He's driven P3 prototypes, he's driven GT3 cars, and now he's having a go in GT4. The Van Berlo family, many races from their stable. He's racing that green car, the green Mercedes from Salazar Racing Team, 16th place overall, being pushed by David Lozier, the leader in the Am class. David looking to try and go up the inside. Well, he looked, but the gap wasn't there for him to attain. He's got the Bullet Racing, only one Bullet Racing car starting this weekend, and the one of Romain Monsi, car number 66, was a winner last time out at Misano when it made its championship debut, the second car, sharing with Alex Lambert. But today, again, caught out by conditions in qualifying, right down in the middle order. That buying Kai van Berlo some time because he's harrying David Lozier. Romain Monsi pushing very hard indeed, and right in behind another car that should be towards the front end of the field, that number 2 Mercedes making up ground, Marcus Pavrud. There's been a bit of a shake-up. No shake-up at the front of the field, however. It stood Mads Siljehaug, 0.7 of a second clear, has become 0.8, nearly 0.9 clear. Ricardo van der Ende is now 2 seconds down on the pace, on the front runner, on the leader, Mads Siljehaug. You see the car there, the BMW, number 8 in 3rd place overall. Duncan Houseman not being able to do anything about it, still tucked in behind in the first of those 2 blue Camaros. Alec Udell in 5th, tail sliding out of Hugenholzbocht, up over the rise, twisting and always thinking as they go through Rob Slottermacherbocht, what comes next? And the answer is they get up towards the best corner on the circuit, up to Schevlach. Midfield battle closing up very nicely indeed. Tail end of that group. Will Moore in the 62 Aston Martin. Of course, the sister car was the one that ended up having had contact with the yellow Mercedes in your shot there, going off the circuit, leaving Tom Woods on the sideline. And now it's Nicholas Scholl in the Porsche Cayman, number 22, who's doing the harrying of the Mercedes. So the roles keep on changing. In the background of the shot, yeah, the Aston Martin there of Will Moore closing in. If anybody's doing any closing, it's happened before, and it's going to carry on happening until he works his way past Duncan Houseman. Had a change of position behind because Finlay Hutchinson has got ahead on this lap of Alec Udell, so the V8 Racing Camaros in 4th and 5th, no longer 4th and 6th. So the Scot, Hutchinson nearly dropping it off 2 corners from the end of the lap, but it's been a very, very good lap for him, nearly ruined it with 2 corners to go, but up into 5th place. And now, can he pull away from Alec Udell? But Alec Udell doing his best through the final sweepers onto the start-finish straight. Trying to get a slingshot out of the final corner, right under the big rear wing of the big Camaro. Let's see, is this going to be a passing manoeuvre down into Tarzan? No, he's pulled out into slipstream very early on. Finlay Hutchinson simply covering the inside line, and still, is he going to run a little bit deep into the corner? Chance for BMW to go up the inside, not being revealed. So Finlay Hutchinson, a very tidy lap indeed. Mads Siljehaug, though, even better, stretching his advantage Now out to 1.1 seconds clear of the red Audi of Nicolai Moller-Madsen, who's got 1.25 seconds advantage over Ricardo van der Ende. Van der Ende having to constantly look in his mirrors, but I think this has been a better start to this lap for Van der Ende. He started to drop. Houseman just sweeping in and out of shot. That's the corner after Scheblach, braking heavily to the right. Oh, there's contact there, and I'm afraid up the inside went Alec Udell. He's clouted the side of Finley Hutchinson, regained the position, and the McLaren's gone through as well. Benjamin Lecen has caught up, and in behind Patrick Niederhauser in the KTM Crossbow, looking to go through as well. So a bit of an assault there on Finley Hutchinson, but Alec Udell gains the position. Looking to see if there's any damage. There seems to be a little bit of something flapping down the right-hand flank of the Camaro. Let's take another little look as it rumbles its way down towards the Hans-Ernstbach tight right. So positions changing. We'll see if there are any notice for contact. There was a bit of contact, a bit of bodywork flapping. Nose to tail, Alec Udell has now got the McLaren of Benjamin Lecen right under his rear wing. Finley Hutchinson will try and fight back, elbowed back down into 7th position. Patrick Niederhauser right on the tail in 8th in the number 16 KTM. 7.5 seconds covered them on the start-finish line all the way up to the lead of the race last time around. I think it would have stretched very slightly on this lap. Mads Siljehaug still leading the way. Yes, indeed, it's gone out to 8 and a bit seconds, nearly 9 seconds back to Niederhauser. So the lead racers enjoying an advantage at the front of the race. Then comes this battle for 3rd place. It's that excellent start from Ricardo van der Ende into 3rd position. He's under a lot of pressure, but he's holding on very well indeed. Nothing personal between these drivers, but these two Dutch racers have been at it for decades. Ricardo van der Ende is the younger of the duo, but they've had many contests in many championships here at Zandvoort over the years. And Duncan Houseman bouncing that V8 Camaro off the curbs, getting closer and closer, but has got to find a way past. And the driver who's not going to offer him any sucker, any opportunity to go past, is most certainly the driver in front. Offered him half a chance. Was the contact there? I was just saying nobody is going to leave the door open, and it happened. I'm so sorry, Ricardo van der Ende. I bigged you up. I expected you to leave a chance, but what I think we're seeing there is that the BMW is starting to struggle for grip. Certainly couldn't get it turned into the corner, and up the inside came Duncan Houseman. Just as I said he wouldn't, he did. So through into 3rd position. I didn't think we'd see any change. We're running very wide, 2 corners from the end of the lap, 3 corners from the end of the lap, with the Camaro now into 3rd position. So it's KTM from Audi, from Chevrolet, now the best of the BMW down into 4th. Can Ricardo van der Ende fight back? And not too surprisingly, the incident between car 25, which we saw making its way forward, that's Alec Udell's BMW, and car 68, Finley Hutchinson's V8 Racing Camaro. That contact between them at turn 10 under investigation. Of course, suffered bodywork damage from the Scot in 7th place. Alec Udell moved up in that instant, up into 5th, has not been toppled as yet by the McLaren. Benjamin Lecen will be pushing hard. Bullet Racing making its way forward. This is Romain Monti. It's only moved him up to 17th place to go past David Logier. But every place counts. Soon it'll be time for the pit window to open for the mandatory driver changes. Right now, Mads Siljehaug sitting on a lead. It's stabilised at 1.2 seconds at the top of the field over Nicolai Moller-Madsen. Duncan Houseman, as we saw, just moved up into 3rd place. Can he drop Ricardo van der Ende? And can he close in on Moller-Madsen with this great little midfield battle? Great to see the mixture of cars. Nicolas Scholl bringing up the rear, 20th position in his Porsche. I fancy Marcus Paverud about to gain a position, possibly. Just going out of shot, pushing very hard on David Logier, but the little Alpine keeping position against the big bruisers around it. Car 62, Wilmore, sort of closed up on them earlier, but now fallen back a little bit. But as they fight, he should be able to catch up all over again. There we are, Wilmore trying to catch up with the blue. Nicolas Scholl, number 22 Porsche. Back to the sharp end of the race. Mads Siljehaug still ahead of Nicolai Moller-Madsen, but reversion of positions. Ricardo van der Ende are back ahead of Duncan Houseman. So it's chopping and changing for 3rd place. Not so long ago we saw the little slip up from Ricardo van der Ende, and presumably the favour was returned. 4th became third, third became fourth, swapping around, and it's the BMW back into third position. Very tidy lap, all but matching the pace of the race leader. Championship leader Max Kobel was outside the top 10. He's up to 10th position now. His next target, the BMW of Gabriele Piana. This was the car that was given a little bit of a crinkle in qualifying. It's all been bashed out, but had an unrepresentative qualifying position, but certainly can fight its way up the order. Still time aplenty. First two have got quite an advantage over this third place battle. It's opened up to nearly 5 seconds between the second place car in the race, Nicolai Moller-Madsen and Ricardo van der Ende. But van der Ende is busy. He's got company with the driver who went past him just a couple of laps ago. He's managed to reverse that order to get back into third place. But again, we see the BMW running wide. Puff of smoke, loses position. The Camaro goes back in front all over again. History repeats itself. But if history repeats itself, we'll see the BMW going back up into third ahead of the Chevrolet sometime soon. They've got different performance potential at different parts on the circuit. Certainly whenever there is an opportunity after Schäflach, it is grabbed down into the very next corner to Mastersbach by the Chevrolet, and it's up to Ricardo van der Ende to fight back all over again. Here are our first two. I think Mads Siljehaug sitting on the lead, 1.1 seconds, as it was the previous lap of Nicolai Moller-Madsen. Red Audi doing its best to hang on. The pit window is open, has been open for half a minute now, but you can be sure these front runners are not planning to come in anytime soon. They will continue their battle, stay out until the very last moment before the pit window is about to close, and then they will dive in. But we do have the second of the V8 Racing Camaros coming in. That's Finley Hutchinson diving for pit entry. That was the one that was given a clatter up the side, and that is still a matter under investigation. The number 68 entry, slightly battered and bruised, being handed over to young Dutch racer. There he is, Olivier Hart, superstar in a whole array of historic racing cars. He shares often with his father David Hart, but right now really enjoying his time and the challenge ahead in far more modern racing machinery. Car 35 has stopped out on circuit. Unfortunately, that's Alain Ferté, Grégoire Demoustier's little Redolé competition Alpine. A sweet car, but for Grégoire, it is stationary. So the driver changes being affected are the first pit visitors. None of the front runners in the top 6 at least have come in to make their driver changes. There is the lead duo, still sitting, well, it's gone out by 0.2 of a second. So Mads Siljehaug, the Norwegian racer in his True Racing KTM, still leading Nicolai Moller-Madsen in that #1 Phoenix Racing Audi. And then the gap behind them, 5 full seconds back to Duncan Hausmann. Pit window still open, the sun is shining now. Not full sun, but partial sun. We'll take that. It was wet this morning when we arrived at the Zandvoort circuit. And suddenly it looks like the gap between first and second may have come down slightly, certainly out of the Hans-Ernst-Bock combinations. It really did seem as though the Phoenix Racing Audi had closed in, but maybe it was the foreshortening angle. The gap as they got to start-finish straight, neither of them thinking about the pits, appears to be very much the 1.3 seconds that it was the previous time around. And in behind them, Duncan Hausmann looking a little safer in that third position ahead of Ricardo van der Ende. But Hausmann's teammate back out onto the circuit, the 68 car being shared by Finley Hutchinson, and the driver's just taken over. Olivier Hart doesn't want to lose any positions. Olivier Hart actually challenging the Phoenix Racing Audi that has yet to make a pit stop, so that won't impress Nicolai Moller-Madsen. And the body language from Olivier Hart. Historic racing cars generally need to be driven in a straight line, but in modern machinery, kicking the tail out. Simon Knapp about to take over the 25 MDM Motorsport BMW from his American teammate. You can see the stars and stripes on the helmets of Alec Udell. He was in the wars a little bit, but still came in from the sharp end of the field. With that slight interference from the 68 V8 Racing Camaro coming on the track, I suggest that the advantage Mads Siljehaug had on the start-finish line over Nicolai Moller-Madsen has increased. 1.2 seconds when they crossed the start-finish line. Then there was the interruption, and as well as Nicolai Moller-Madsen did to shake off the Camaro, he's bound to have lost a few tenths of a second. I'd say he lost probably a couple of, yes, in fact, in the first sector he lost the best part of a quarter of a second. That will hurt. All those laps he's been spending trying to chip away at the race leader. Yeah, a third of a second gained in the first 2/3 of the lap, and again the Phoenix Racing Audi running wide out of the exit of the Hans-Ernst-Bock, picking up the dust on the outside. The rumbling Camaro running behind is not running behind. Of course, these two front runners owe everybody a pit stop. They've still got 5 minutes to come into the pit, so travelling on, but look how that gap has gone out. It was 1.197 seconds last time around between Silje Haug and Moller Madsen, and this time a week 1.7. That hurt. Nearly half a second lost. Patrick Niederhauser diving for the pits in the background of the shot. He was coming in from effective third place. Ricardo van der Ende in the pits as well. Don't forget, he had that long battle with Duncan Hausman. So Hausman has a minute's piece. In fact, he's got nearly 5 seconds clear of the McLaren of Benjamin Lecen. He can concentrate on his in-laps. Look for Dan Mackay. He'll be taking over from Ricardo van der Ende there in the pits at the moment. In the Equus Motorsport car. These have been good laps for the race leader, Mads Silje Haug, working the traffic. Stretch that advantage over the Phoenix Racing Audi. Nikolai Moller Madsen doing his best, but if there's been a bit of ebbing and flowing, it's mainly been going away from the chasing day. Various matters under investigation. Cars 11 and 31 being considered. That's the Las Maras McLaren, and 31 is the yellow Salazar Racing Team Mercedes of Bob Herber, local racer, and Alessandro Giovanelli. Bob Herber doing the first into the race. So the stewards are watching. Into the race control. Race leader Mads Silje Haug. The traffic has gone in his favour. Moved out to 1.7 seconds clear of Nikolai Moller Madsen. Moller Madsen again out behind the car that had made a pit stop. It was the car that was qualified third. Started at the sharp end of the field, fell back slightly. 25 BMW, and now Moller Madsen in from second place into the pits. The pit window's still open, of course, that's why he's coming in. But for our race leader, Mads Silje Haug continues on his way down to Tarzan one more time. Several drivers being warned for not respecting track limits, and most notably one of them is the driver of this car, the number 1 Audi, Nikolai Moller Madsen. The car being handed over to Cedric Freiberghaus, but of course the damage can be done. You accumulate penalty points, if you wish, for exceeding track limits, and you get a few too many, you'll get a warning, a black and white warning flag. Do that any more than that, and you will start picking up time penalties. All looks ordered and under control for Phoenix Racing in the pits, but of course they know that Mads Silje Haug continuing in the lead of the race in the white and blue Valvoline liveried KTM front of the field. Duncan Hausman second on the circuit in that blue Camaro. Not the one you're seeing there, in fact that's the 68 car that's come back out onto the circuit from its pit stop, with the 69 car, which is 6.5 seconds down on the race leader. There is our race leader behind a sister KTM. The 16 car has made its pit stop though. Now in the hands of Reinhard Koffler. That's a quick car with a quick driver, but for true racing, he wants Mads Silje Haug not to lose even a 1/10 of a second, and in trying to keep out of the way, Reinhard Koffler gets it wrong at Hans-Ernst-Bock. Well, advantage to the race leader, disadvantage. Well, trying to be polite, running out of grip, running out of road. Waiting now for the number 1 Audi to get going all over again. Had to wait, you can see the crew sitting and waiting. So many times McLaren also waiting until it's signalled away from that parking in echelon formation in the pit lane. Go a second too early and you have to come back in. You haven't met your minimum pit stop time, and to come in and serve a 1 second stop and go for being just 1 second short costs you way more than 1 second. Near damage there, near contact. 16 Reinhard Koffler duking it out with the MDM Motorsport BMW side by side. But I think when Silje Haug, he's in the pits at the moment, and Duncan Hausman in the pits at the moment, when they go back out, this battle for 7th place will be behind them, because they've run very, very good stints. It's always intriguing in two-driver races. You have the first pair possibly fighting with each other, and then they hand over the challenge, and their co-drivers get to continue the battle. The 68 Camaro being driven very hard indeed by Olivier Hart, fighting there with Koffler. So where are the moves going to come? Let's see how the order shakes out. Certainly that McLaren is right in the mix for a Keith Verschoor. Drive-through penalty for car 69 for causing a collision. We know the identity of the 69 crew. It's V8 Racing, and it's Duncan Houseman who's sharing that with Luke Brandt, so that must be what happened when he went up the inside of, well, he had a clash in the opening corner of the race, but I think it was when he was trying to make his way through, gaining positions later on. We saw him tussling with Ricardo van der Ende. But the car that came in from the lead of the race, Mads Siljehaug, has handed it over to his new teammate, having his second ever run in Europe, his second ever run at Zandvoort. It's the American racer, Nikolai Elganyan, and he is out into the lead of the race. So lofty territory. What is his advantage? The Phoenix Racing Audi, you can see in the background of the shot, but Cedric Freiberghaus aboard that, far more familiar with GT4 and with European racing. So 25 minutes, that's all you have to do to stay at the front of the race. So welcome, Nikolai. Let's see what the Californian racer can get under his belt. Got to stay cool, got to stay calm. He's got to stay within the white lines marking the edge of the circuit, because the number 1 Audi that's giving chase already has been considered for exceeding track limits at turn 11, and likewise number 7, but that's way down. The Aston Martin Street Art Racing car in the hands of Jamie Vanderbilt now, way down the order. That's down in 16th place. And with the pit window now having closed, just waiting for the timing screens to adapt back to, so all the drivers are listed having made their outlaps. You often get confused when some of the cars, they cross the line, start-finish line, when making their pit stops, of course, depending where their garage is located in the pit lane. And so it's not representative, but what we can guarantee is the front end of the race. It is the number 24 KTM leading the way, and tucked in behind and getting closer by the second is Cedric Freiberghaus in this number 1 Phoenix Racing Audi. And the drive-through penalty for car 69 has been cancelled. No sooner have I reported it than carry on as you were. And the 69 car in the hands of Luke Brahms now is going to be at the sharp end of the field. Should probably be just out of the tail end of this shot. Ready for the blue Camaro. Should be coming around in 3rd or 4th position, but this is definitely the battle for 1st and 2nd. Nico Elganyan and Cedric Freiberghaus, with Freiberghaus, the Swiss racer, flashing the lights and getting closer and closer. Not close enough to make a move this time around, but just half a second, 0.524 of a second between 1st and 2nd. Waiting to see which car will cross the start-finish line in 3rd place. It's Equus Motorsport, Ewan Mackay. Then Duncan Mackay, his brother, in the Keith Verschoor McLaren, and right behind Simon Knapp, Reinhard Koffler, Olivier Hart, Jan Kissel. That is your top 8. Order keeps on changing. And in fact, Luke Brahms will not be coming through. I thought he might be about 5th, but he's going to come through in 10th position behind Marius Zug. But all eyes on the front of the field. 23 minutes to go. Making the move, but not making it stick on the rise up towards Schäflach. Cedric Freiberghaus very impatient to make his way to the front for Phoenix Racing. Nikolai Elganyan hanging on in the lead of the race. The American visitor looking to enjoy his racing here in Europe. And oh, the 16 car, it's sort of got the rear wing hanging off it. That has already been through the gravel, trying to keep out of the way. Reinhard Koffler 6th at the start of the lap, but unfortunately has had a clatter early just in the run behind the pits going towards the Gerlachbocht, and been through the gravel once, into the barriers after that. The change of the lead of the race, surely here. Up the inside goes Cedric Freiberghaus, and tucking in again to see if he can find his way back. Elganyan, can he put the KTM back into the lead of the race? But that was a very tidy move for the lead. And again, experience on this circuit. Oh, big mistake from Nikolai Elganyan, only just keeping it on the circuit there. Running too deep into the Hansertsbocht. That has made Freiberghaus clear in the lead of the race. And let's see what the gap is. Well, he's still 9 seconds clear of Ewan Mackay in 3rd place. It's actually warmer out in the cockpit than I realised. Just seen Ricardo van der Ende coming off the pit wall. He handed over the Equus BMW in 3rd place, and he's looking as though he's had quite a hot stint in the car. Not as hot as it was 2 weeks ago in Misano, but now we can see conditions warming up here at Zandvoort. Cedric Freiberghaus 2.5 seconds clear of Nikolai Elganyan. Looking at lap speeds last time around, yeah, certainly the gap will be coming down. Ewan Mackay will be closing in, but it's looking like a really, really dominant performance for Phoenix Motorsport with that number 1 Audi. Phoenix Racing, Cedric Freiberghaus building on the work of Nikolai Moller-Madsen. Took no second invitation to go into the lead of the race now. In behind Schweders Motorsports, Mercedes in the mix. This is all fighting just outside the top 10. That's Jan Reining, the really, really tall German driver. Mark van der Aert and JB van den Berg, all very, very close together. Gaggles of cars fighting for position. The number 2 Mercedes Lippert Motorsport, Lucy Dress and Marcus Paverud in the battles early on. Lucy Dress fighting with Jan Kasperlik. So a bit further down the order than they'd normally expect to be, but join the battle. But battling will continue, and unfortunately for 16, that was the moment that, well, it does seem if you drive a V8 Camaro, you will be in the wars this weekend, and that was what you call an assist. And so Olivier Hart, that was battling for 6th position, so I think you can see who may be the aggrieved party there. It's Reinhard Kofler in 16, and surprise, surprise, or no surprise whatsoever, that incident is under investigation. So Olivier Hart circulating the 68 Camaro in 6th place. The sister car Luke Brahms is in 9th. It's got a Ginetta giving chase, Jorge Catalan in 10th position overall. Gap first to second has gone out by a second. A very, very good lap for Cedric Freiberghaus. One expected in terms of experience with that Phoenix Racing out that he would be able to catch and drop Nikolai Urbanyan. Somebody coming into the pit lane, that's clearly for a stop-and-go penalty because their pit stops were too short. And unfortunately for the 777 crew, Jan Reinig, not his problem, but he's come in, fallen out of the top 10. And another car coming in is car number 16, the True Racing. Well, that's a car that we saw clattered into the barriers, so it matters not for them. Their race effectively run, but this little grouping is very, very good indeed. The Ekris Motorsport BMW just ahead of the queue. Ewan Mackay, brother Dan Mackay tucked in behind in the Equipe Vauxhall McLaren. They are 3rd and 4th, tucked in behind him. Simon Knapp in the better place. The 2 MDM Motorsport BMWs, then Olivier Hart hanging onto their coattails, and in behind Jan Kisiel trying to stay in the battle as well. Kisiel in the yellow Mercedes, just out of shot, but you can see 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th all close together. Ewan Mackay at the front of the queue, Dan Mackay 2nd in line, 3rd in line, the BMW about to be passed, or not. Having a look up the inside, Olivier Hart halfway up the inside, but it's a long, long left-hander, almost side by side out of the corner. Lots of grunt for the Camaro, but on the correct line as they get down towards the Hans-Erzbach. Surely position safe for now. Breathe in. Are they both going to get round? Yes, they do. So good job done by Simon Knapp, but of course he knows the circuit. Dutchman racing on Dutch soil. Not going to leave the door open. Mind you, I said that about Ricardo van der Ende earlier in the race, and they did precisely that. So all along, the Polish racer behind, Jan Kisiel, very, very well placed in the championship because he's leading it. Closing in that yellow Mercedes around the outside this time. The BMW is hung out to dry. Up goes the V8 Racing Camaro. Job very well done by Olivier Hart. And look, Kisiel ducking past the BMW. BMW compromised through that final corner. And 2 places lost in 2 corners, unfortunately for Simon Knapp. Not so long ago, fighting very cleanly for position. Now he's at the back of that group. Got plenty of time to get his way back, though. 17.5 minutes remaining in this race. The very essence of GT4 racing is the balanced performance between the various manufacturers. As you see in this shot alone, Chevrolet Camaro. Well, let's take a look at this 3rd place backwards battle. Drive-through penalty for car 8, track limits. That's Ewan Mackay. He's in 2nd. He's in 3rd place overall at the front of this bunch. So that is his race done and dusted. Windscreen wipers on, whether because that's in frustration or is there a drop of drizzle in the air? It matters not. He's going back down the order. So Dan Mackay in the McLaren that's chasing his brother Dan and Ewan fighting together, but for Dan it will be position presented to him up to 3rd place in the McLaren when Ewan comes in for the drive-through penalty. Incident between the 68 Olivier Hart driven Camaro and the 16 of Jan Kisiel, the KTM we saw off into barriers. No further action for that incident, which, you know, probably raised a few eyebrows. There certainly was contact, but I will have to look at the replay all over again. But right now, just going to enjoy this battle for 3rd place overall. We know the car at the front of it has a drive-through penalty to serve, but for the 2 Mackay brothers, Ewan is the younger, he's the one in front, but he's the one who's going to be reporting to the pit lane. So seniority will lead to change of position. And car 16 is going to be pinged. It hasn't come in to serve its stop and go penalty, but already it's right down with Reinhard Kofler with that damaged rear wing down in 25th position. And likewise, we'll expect Ewan Mackay to be coming in soon from 3rd place on the track in that Ekris Motorsport BMW. And so everybody else in the top 10 will step up a position. 16 is now in the pit lane, having that rear wing looked at, so maybe serving a drive-through penalty too, separately. But the 111 BMW, Marius Zug leading the Pro-Am class, 7.5 seconds clear of Jorge Catalan's Ginetta. They're 8th and 9th overall, but 1st and 2nd in the Pro-Am class. Very tidy pairing of Marius Zug and Gabriele Piana. Now, either my eyes are funny, or the rear end of that KTM isn't as it should be. After the contact with the 68 Chevrolet Camaro, no further action required according to stewards. Obviously plenty of action for the True Racing team, because they've got to get it straightened out all over again. So that looks as though it's going to be parked for the remainder of the race. Quarter of an hour remaining, but still racing fast and furious on the track. And Olivier Hart has decided he needs to move up. He's gone past Dan Mackay, so just waiting to assume 3rd place overall. Dan Mackay is suddenly down into effective 4th. The Ecris Motorsport BMW at the front of this queue has to serve a drive-through penalty for exceeding track limits. Another car being investigated for exceeding track limits is that yellow Mercedes at the back of the group. Jan Kisiel could be pinged if he does it one more time. Car 21, that's down towards the tail of the field. That is also being observed. So positions changing. The V8 Camaro making good at the moment. Olivier Hart got the McLaren from Akit Vachor in behind. That's Dan Mackay. Ewan Mackay in front of them any moment now. Surely must be peeling into the pit lane to serve its drive-through penalty. Will it do it this time? No, it will not. Well, the officials will be looking. There is a time limit. So for now, Ewan Mackay hangs on to 3rd place for Ecris Motorsport. Only driver who's using his windscreen wipers. In behind, no such interference for Olivier Hart in the blue Camaro. Tucked on his tail, Dan Mackay. Of course, that McLaren is very, very sleek in a straight line. Normally gains down the start-finish straight, but not doing so here as yet to make things stick. Maybe he's quite wise to have his windscreen wipers on, just picking up a few rain spots on the cameras. That's out of the Hugenhoch box. Acceleration up over the crest, through the sweeper at Rob Slotternacherbach, coming up right now for the drivers, and then up over the crest. Last place, they want to find the track surface a little bit greasy as they go to this corner, Schäflach, where the circuit seems to be heading straight for a giant gravel trap built onto the side slope of one of the sand dunes. The V8 Racing Camaro has just got so much more pace through the corner, down into the dip, locking up in front of him, Ewan Mackay, trying to get the Ecris Motorsport BMW braked for the tight right-hander at Mastersbocht. And the field bunching up, Jan Kisiel trying to make the moves, getting onto the tail, almost up the side of the McLaren of Dan Mackay. So it's Ewan Mackay from Olivier Hart, Dan Mackay, 3rd, 4th and 5th. Battling far from over. And while they battle, just reported Marius Zug leading the Pro-Am class in the number 111 BMW, just some distance off their tail. In fact, closing right onto the tail. He's the back of that, no, that's Simon Knapp, the back of the group. The next BMW is the car leading Pro-Am. Leading Am is David Logier, 21st position overall in the little CMR entered Alpine. 21st, he's clear of Alessandro Giovanelli by about 5 seconds, and that's a giant margin when you look at this bunching at the front of the field. Next target for this group, fighting over 3rd position, is Nikolai Elganyan, who's now 9.2 seconds down on the driver who passed him, Cedric Freiberghaus. Far more experienced Freiberghaus, stretching clear in the lead of the race. 9 seconds clear of him and 12 seconds clear of this battle. This is the battle for 3rd place. Sometimes it's just not your day. A couple of crews were pinged for making a pit stop shorter than minimum time. One of them was the Schrader Motorsports Mercedes crew, and now they're being warned for exceeding track limits. So they've got to watch out. They could be picking up their 2nd penalty. Still waiting for any further information about the car running 3rd. Ewan Mackay in the Ecris Motorsport BMW. I'm sure I saw a message on the screen saying he was going to have to serve a drive-through penalty for exceeding track limits, but he stays in 3rd place in the race with Olivier Hart in that blue Camaro right on his tail, looking up the inside, yet again not quite making it stick. Behind in 5th place, Dan Mackay in the Akit Vachor McLaren. He's being kept very busy indeed. Jan Kisiel tucked under his tail, that yellow Mercedes, and on their tail they've got Simon Knapp. He lost positions, he's trying to get them all back in the number 25 BMW. Olivier Hart looking one way, looking the other, going around the outside, making it stick. That car just manages to turn in where others don't. There's certainly plenty of power, plenty of grunt out of the corners. And now Ewan Mackay is having to accept defeat. Olivier Hart up into third position overall. He did well, he passed the McLaren of Dan Mackay, now he's picked off Ewan Mackay. Jan Kisiel making progress in that yellow Mercedes from Lippert Motorsport. Simon Knapp desperate to regain positions at the back of that pack. But already we can see now that Ewan Mackay has been passed. That Camaro is getting away. Olivier Hart heading for the podium on home ground. 10 minutes remaining. I'm sure there's still some passing to come. And in from comes Ewan Mackay, waiting. He left it until the very last moment he could make the pit stop, so he's not going to finish in the top 10. It's a drive-through penalty. He'll come out, well, maybe in about 10th place, but and in behind, this is the moment Simon Knapp's trying to go around the outside of Jan Kisiel, but it's a case of diminishing returns. So we know the race leader is Cedric Freiberghaus. He's 9 seconds clear of Nikolai Elganyan, but Nikolai only 3.5 seconds clear of the best of the rest. That's now Olivier Hart just starting to escape from the McLaren of Dan Mackay. Jan Kisiel in behind, Simon Knapp in behind. Then there's a gap of nearly 5 seconds back. The Pro-Am class leader, Marius Zug, in 7th overall. I still feel there are drivers who may yet transgress by crossing the white lines too often and going all 4 wheels beyond the edge of the circuit. Should they do so, having been warned before, they will get penalties. They will have to serve the sort of penalty that's dropped Ewan Mackay out of the top 10. That drive-through penalty, he'd just been demoted to 4th place, came in, served the drive-through penalty. I'll see next time around where he's slotted back in, but this, the battle for 4th now, is between Dan Mackay in the McLaren. It's Jan Kisiel in the Mercedes, Simon Knapp in the BMW. And all along, the driver who got past them, moved to the front of that group, is escaping. Olivier Hart in the 68 V8 Racing Camaro in 3rd. He's now setting off after Nikolai Elganyan. Has plenty of time to get close. Whether he can find a passing manoeuvre to go into 2nd place remains to be seen, but such a crowd favourite, the V8 Racing team. They've run some great cars over the years, but they do love their Chevrolets in GT4 category. We've had a spin for the number 7, or should we say 007 Aston Martin in true James Bond fashion. Jamie van den Balk, he's running 11th, but spin out of turn 2, did rejoin, but clearly hampered his chances in the race. There's the Pro-Am class leader just going into the bottom of the shot. Marius Zug in the number 111 BMW from the RN Vision team. Here is the AM class battle though, because it's really, really closed up. Alessandro Giovanelli in the number 31 Celleslar Racing Team Mercedes, now right on the tail of David Logier. On the tail, did I say? In front of. You can see that move coming. He gained 5 seconds over the last handful of laps and has moved into the class lead for Celleslar Racing Team. 21st and 22nd positions they may be, but they are 1st and 2nd in the AM class. That's always worth remembering. The split that I'm looking on as Alessandro Giovanelli catches, passes and then pulls away from the little CMR Alpine is the gap between 2nd and 3rd in the race. Nikolai Elganyan took over the car that started from pole position, the KTM, driven by the driver who started from the sweet spot from Mads Siljehout. Got overtaken by Cedric Freiberghaus early in his stint. Cedric Freiberghaus now 9 seconds clear, going out by the lap, but 2.8 seconds is the gap back from Elganyan to Olivier Hart. 2nd to 3rd. Will he be able to hang on in the KTM? And indeed, will Dan Mackay be able to hang on to 4th place, because Jan Kisiel in the number 4 Mercedes is all over him. Simon Knapp may yet pick up the pieces. That said, Simon Knapp has dropped somewhat. Simon Knapp is sick. Yeah, you can see the BMW in the background shot as the Mercedes of Jan Kisiel fights with Dan Mackay. If there was still performance in the tyres for Simon Knapp's BMW, he surely would close their tail, but he appears to be falling away. Fourth Mackay, 5th Jan Kisiel, but little bit of a twitch coming out of the Hugenholz box there for the McLaren racer. So Dan Mackay clearly hanging on, trying to get the power down just before there was enough grip and traction from his tyres, but then through the fast sweepers out towards Schäferlach manages to drop the Mercedes. So yeah, it might have been twitchy, but maybe he was getting the power down slightly earlier than normal, because it's certainly given him a little bit of an advantage. 6 minutes remaining. Nikolai Elganyayan running second for the True Racing KTM, number 24. Now just under 1.8 seconds clear. Black and white flag for disrespecting track limits. Car number 14, that is Dan Mackay. One more of those, the driver in the 4th place McLaren is going to be penalised. He has got to be very, very cautious. Look at him now, he's under huge pressure from Jan Kisiel. Got to keep it clean and tidy. And Nico Elganyayan, I'm afraid, his 1.8 second advantage. You can see second place is his, but not for much longer, because here comes Olivier Hart, faster on the track. Now he's just got to pick his moments. And for Nikolai Elganyayan, he could yet still finish on the podium, which would be a phenomenal result for the American racer. New to the championship this weekend, raced here in a Central European round, or around the Central European GT4 series last year. Does his racing in the States. Learning the racing scene here. He will leave the door open, surely. He cannot match the pace of Olivier Hart, the young Dutchman, diving up the inside into second place for the V8 racing team, kicking up a bit of tyre debris. Now Nikolai Elganyayan will sit behind him and see if he can learn any of the tricks of the trade around here at Zandvoort. Olivier Hart knows them very, very well indeed. So second has become third, but it's still a fantastic run for the driver of the True Racing KTM. 4 3/4 minutes remaining. Aston Martin in their path, that's one of 2 from Street Art Racing. That's the one shared by Pascal Bachmann and Clement Seiler. That's down in 24th position, a lap down. Don't want it to interrupt them, it does not interrupt them. Meanwhile, Cedric Freiberghaus, haven't seen him for a while. There he is, number 1, Phoenix Racing Audi, into the lead of the race some while ago. Best part of 10 seconds clear. But of course, the driver who'll be leading the chase will not have time to catch him. That's Olivier Hart. Now up into second place in the V8 Racing Camaro. But the Phoenix Racing Audi has just looked so in control here. A lot of the drivers really a bit caught out in changing weather conditions when we were doing practice. It did dried out right at the end, and it looked as though pole was going their way. In the end, Mad Sillihaug just stuck one over them, but starting second, now in the lead of the race, pulling clear. It's a job very well done. Pro-Am class leader Marius Zug got it under control by 7.5 seconds, 7.6 seconds over the Ginetta crew, with Jorge Catalan bringing that home. Car number 14, 4th place, Dan Mackay in the McLaren ahead of Jan Kisiel in the Mercedes. Going around that Street Art Racing Aston Martin. Mercedes closing in yet again. Last time on the start-finish line, the gap between them was half a second. What's it going to be this time? Pretty much exactly the same gap, I would suggest. A 1/10 of a second gained by the chaser, Jan Kisiel, the Polish racer. 5th place overall in that number 5 for Lippert Motorsports Mercedes. But Dan Mackay, we know, is being warned he has to respect track limits. He's had the black and white warning flag. Any further warnings will not be a warning, there will be punishment, so he's got to be very, very tidy indeed. Getting the power down wherever possible. Car 31 now in the lead of the AM class overall. Alessandro Giovanelli sharing that entry for the first time this weekend with Dutch racer Bob Herber, so Bob will be very happy indeed if they're going to take the top step of the AM podium. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So Cedric Freiberghaus's advantage has come down. It's gone from 9 and a bit seconds with 2.5 minutes remaining to just under 9 seconds. So Olivier Hart is catching him, but too much of a mountain to climb. For Alessandro Giovanelli here, sitting on that very tidy lead. In fact, it's come down somewhat. It was 7 and a bit seconds, a much better lap that time around. I suggest traffic has played its role. David Logier 5 seconds down, 4.9 seconds down, but really the AM class win in the bag for the 31 Mercedes crew. Still the battle for 4th place rages, and Jan Kisiel probably raging. He's looking for a gap, and the gap is being semi-presented some of the time, but Dan Mackay is keeping it tidy. He's got to hang on for another 2 minutes, well, not even quite that, but the flag comes out in 1.5 minutes or thereabouts. Now for Cedric, it will be for Cedric Freiberghaus. This battle for 4th place still keeps going, but Simon Knapp, as I suggested, hasn't been able to stay in the picture. He's just out of the top of the shot, so it looks though the best that he can collect from this afternoon's race is a 6th place overall. And just for reference, Ewan Mackay, Ekris Motorsport BMW, back in 10th place, having had that drive, that stop and go penalty. That cost him dearly. He got up, the car was up in third place. Had just been passed, pushed back by the 68 Camaro of Olivier Hart, and then the penalty was served and down, and is running in 10th place, just ahead of Alex Lamberts. Final lap of the race. Cedric Freiberghaus, he's backed off. He was 9 and a bit seconds clear, then 8.8 seconds. Now he's only 7.4 seconds clear of the Camaro of Olivier Hart, but that is absolutely fine for the Phoenix Racing team and for Cedric Freiberghaus, building on the advantage in the first part of the race. Nikolai Moller-Madsen started from pole position, and between them they've fought off the challenge of that number 24 KTM Crossbow that took the lead of the race. Looking good for victory. Last few corners, it's all been very, very tidy indeed for the Phoenix Racing crew. And at the end of the hour, any second now, this is of course the final lap. Round through the final corner, the Arie Luyendyk box for the last time. Overall victory, outright victory, call it what you will, for the number 1 Phoenix Racing Audi. The blue Camaro chumming to the back of the shot. Second place for Olivier Hart. Managed to drop Nikolai Elganyan by about 2.5 seconds. In the end, he was 6.1 seconds down as the race leader backed off, but a good chase from the young Dutchman. Elganyan comes home in third place. Great result for him. The number 14 McLaren made it fourth for Daniel Mackay. Jan Kisiel fifth, couldn't find a way past. 6th place Simon Knapp. An overall Pro-Am winner in 7th place overall, which is Marius Zug in the 111 Motorsport BMW, with Jorge Catalan just 7 seconds down in 2nd position in that class. So some good runs there from drivers in the Pro-Am class, and the AM class, as we saw just a few moments ago, likely to end up with victory for Alessandro Giovanelli in the number 31 Celestia Racing Mercedes. But victory today, and by a big margin in GT4 standards, eventually by 6.1 clear seconds. The Phoenix Racing Audi. Job very well done by a very well-balanced team. And the Ekris Motorsport BMW, where did that end up? Well, it stayed in 10th place. It could have, with another lap, have maybe moved up 1 position at the expense of Mark van der Aar. So the drive-through penalty really hurt them, as you can imagine. So the first of the GT4 races here this weekend at Zandvoort, and its advantage to one of the 2 cars that started from the front row of the grid, started from where it was a big advantage and made that advantage pay. Second race will be at 11:25 on Sunday, tomorrow, here at Zandvoort. But Phoenix Racing, they've had the first roll of the dice. And for Nikolai Moller-Madsen, who started, and for Cedric Freiberghaus, who's bringing it home, has brought it home. It's just got to trickle back to the pits. Job done. The first of the 2 races here is in their pocket. And indeed, that's their first win of the year. They've had a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th and a 5th, but this was the win they were looking for. And no doubt there'll be delight down there in the Phoenix Racing Audi camp. And to win here is also extra fun. It's a circuit the drivers enjoy very much indeed, with some proper corners, as we call them, corners that really make the drivers think very hard indeed about how they're going to take them. None more so than Schäflack. So extra delight for winning at Zandvoort. Historic circuit, opened in 1948, been providing great circuit racing ever since. So here comes the winning car from Phoenix Racing. Very well done indeed to them. Just waiting for the engine to go off, and quickly out. Nikolai Moller-Madsen suitably delighted with that. Not just the fact they won for the first time this season, but they made it look pretty easy. But of course the roles can easily be swapped around, because the grid for tomorrow's race is very different indeed. But for Cedric Freiberghaus, quiet satisfaction. He had to hunt down Nikolai Elganyan. Far more experience of the car in the circuits. He made that pay. He got into the lead of the race and then pulled clear. In the final few laps, he was able to back off that little bit. But job done very well indeed by the Phoenix Racing crew.
Thank you.
Winners Pirelli caps. And hopefully we'll have an interview with our winning pair for any time soon, because Cedric Freiberghaus will be very pleased indeed. Just taking his earplugs out. Nikolai Moller-Madsen, he did the first half of the race, and between them they won by 6.1 seconds from the charging V8 Racing Camaro of Olivier Hart and Finlay Hutchinson. Mads Siljehaug and American visitor Nikolai Elganyan will be pleased with that 3rd place overall and Dan Mackay, best of the McLaren drivers, sharing with Benjamin Lessen. 4th place overall, resisting fierce challenge from Jan Kisiel in the closing stages of the race. And for the MDM Motorsport crew running those 2 BMWs, a better placed car, Simon Knapp and Alec Udell, only 6th, but I think there's more to come from them. They've been fast, they've been consistent. And the Pro-Am winners in 7th place overall. Marius Zug brought it home, Gabriele Piana did the starting stage in the race. 7th overall, great result for them. And the top car in the AM class, 21st position overall, Alessandro Giovanelli, continuing where Bob Herber started. 21st overall, but top in the class. But let's go down with the winners, because the Phoenix Racing crew are with Dakota beneath the podium.
Guys, a massive congratulations. Cedric, I talked to you on the grid, but this is a much better place to talk to you down here in Parc Fermé. Number 1 for number 1. Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm really happy. Nikolai did a super job at the start, just managed to hold the place and make a good gap to the P3, and then I just need to bring it home. It was a really nice race, so I'm really happy about our performance.
Nikolai, your teammate couldn't have said it any better. A really nice start from you. Happy with your performance?
Yeah, really happy. We're happy with the car, and then happy to see Cedric passing the KTM and just pull away. I mean, I think our guys at the Phoenix really deserve this one, so it's really nice to give them finally a win. And yeah, I know they will have a beer tonight, so they deserve it.
Exactly what you said after some unlucky finishes. Today is the day. Congratulations, guys. Thank you.
Guys, please turn around with the car in the background. Yeah.
Plenty of quiet satisfaction there from Cedric Freiberghaus and the driver who kicked it off, Nikolai Moller-Madsen. And that certainly is helping their championship challenge. They're only in effective 4th place overall, but they've gained ground and all those ahead of them. Most notably, still in the lead of the championship, but Jan Kisiel and Max Kobold could only finish in 5th place today. So the swinging, but they did finish ahead of Simon Knapp and Alec Udell. So the places are changing in the championship, but I think all the rivals have to watch out the advance of the Phoenix Racing crew. They took victory today. Let's see if they can do it all over again tomorrow. But in terms of putting down a marker, they've done that very, very well indeed here at Zandvoort. As you can see, the flags blowing all over the place. The weather conditions look as though they could continue to change through this weekend. We started damp this morning, we've turned dry. We'll take that. Tomorrow could be very different indeed. But for all the teams who competed here for the first of the 2 rounds of the races for the GT4 European Series, let's take a look back at the highlight. It was fast and it was furious, and some great drives at the front. Ricardo van der Ende in that 8 BMW, working his way from 6th up to 3rd. Then the car went backwards. Then it had a drive-through penalty. Tom Wood, unfortunately, given a clatter. Further clatters further down the field, and among them was the 68 Camaro, but that continued to have a really good run. Olivier Hart took it over and was very muscular, working his way forward. Nikolai Elganyayan, there he goes to number 24, the teammate car, the number 16, got out of the way, went into the gravel, and that wasn't the end of its problems. But for Nico Elganyayan, he had to hang in there as best he could, but the pace of Cedric Freiberghaus took the number 1 Audi past, and there is number 16 in the walls, in the tyre walls. And again, super tight. This is the move to take the lead. This is Cedric Freiberghaus going by Nicola Elganyayan through to take victory, very tidily indeed, but a good run to 2nd place for Olivier Hart in the 68 Camaro. Job done for the number 1 Phoenix Racing crew. They've got to do it all over again tomorrow in the 2nd of our 2 races. And it's been a really fabulous start, some fabulous racing here at Zandvoort, a circuit that really invites the drivers to get stuck in, and nobody got stuck in more than the Phoenix Racing crew that went home to take victory. And they have grabbed the first handful of points, and will look to be doing it all over again tomorrow. A few hard luck stories, most notably the Ecris Motorsports BMW crew. They had to serve a drive-through penalty for exceeding track limits, and that left them with a minority point score for 10th place overall. And that's the sort of setback you can have in a championship that can really, really hurt. It's all about consistency in these championships. Get yourself at the front end and keep on scoring. And that's a record that's certainly worked for Leipert Motorsport. They're still leading the championship, but only by a small margin. Simon Knapp and Alec Udell leading the chase for the MDM Motorsport BMW crew. So trophies to be collected. Waiting for the crew that's coming out in 3rd place overall. It's the number 24 crew. Of course, they started from the front row of the grid. Mads Siljehaug, new American teammate Nikolai Elganyayan in 2nd place overall. It's Finley Hutchinson in the white overalls and Olivier Hart in the black overalls of V8 Racing Camaro. But here are winners. Nikolai Moller-Madsen, followed out onto the podium by Cedric Freiberghaus, victors for the Phoenix Racing Audi crew. So waiting for the traditional podium celebrations, and there is a notification of our top 3 crews. Audi from Chevrolet from KTM. We like the mix.
Ja, dat was hem dan, de lange versie overigens. En Peter Koor van Pirelli gaat de prijs uit.
So the ringing out of the German national anthem for the race-winning team, Phoenix Racing, the Audi crew of Cedric Freiberghaus on the right of the top step of the podium, and Nikolai Moller-Madsen, multinational crew, multinational team, but the fastest outfit at Zandvoort in the first of 2 races for the GT4 European Series. We get to do it all over again tomorrow. Perhaps the crew on the left of the podium, the Chevrolet crew of Finley Hutchinson, the Tool, Scott, and Olivier Hart will have a say in that one as well.
En dan is het direct tijd.
And for the driver who started on pole position, Mads Siljehaug on the right-hand side of the podium, and his new teammate, the American Nikolai Elgonyan, 3rd place today. They could be very, very proud in that result indeed. So now it's time for the champagne. Run away if you can. But what was a wet morning has suddenly become a little wet up on the podium one more time. But you can see the pleasure of the top 3 crews. It's about getting the points in the bag. They've done just that. They've entertained us fantastically, as the GT4 European Series always manages to do. I very much look forward to tomorrow's race as well. Multi-class race, there are Pro-Am winners and Am winners as well. We'll be celebrating up on the podium.
Gaan we meteen door naar de volgende klasse. GT4 Pro-Am kampioenschap. Op de 3e plaats.
Okay, well that concludes our coverage of the first of the 2 races here at Zandvoort. We're looking forward to the GT4 runners showing their very best again tomorrow on Sunday here at Zandvoort. Make sure you join us. I've been Bruce Jones.